Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Friday edition of the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Coburner. We're bringing this to you live on your sports network. Day 2 of our high school football extravaganza. Want to see more from the national side of things? Check out our Twitter page at Casual Sports Report. But without any further ado, let's start talking a little bit more about some high school football. We previewed, 16 games yesterday on the show. So if you don't hear your game today, it's because we talked about it yesterday. So make sure to go back and check there if you don't hear your game talked about on today's show. Down here at the bottom, you can see all the games we have going on the network tonight. Should be a fun night of football, a little chilly. We'll see how that all plays out. At the moment, it's 63 degrees here in Youngstown, 13-mile-an-hour winds, but by the time we get to kickoff tonight, going to be seeing about 56 degrees, dropping down to 52 degrees by the end of games. Only 8-mile-an-hour winds, though. It's coming out of the south. Not very much going to be not going to be much of a factor, and no rain in the forecast. Going to be a little humid, but not too rainy, thankfully. So it should be a really good night for football. Probably still going to be a little chilly, but about the same we've seen the last 2 weeks now. I think going into the third week of this colder weather football that we've seen here in October, these teams should be better prepared. They should have taken really these last 2 weeks. They've been practicing in this weather, in these conditions. So I don't think weather is going to be near as much of a factor as it was, especially when what we saw early on in this month. And really that first week, 3 weeks ago, we had a warm Monday through Thursday. You got into Friday and the temperatures dropped that night, and that was the coldest one. You saw offenses just look extremely lackluster. Last week, a little bit of improvement. Teams got used to it a little bit more. Now they're a third week playing it, and I expect teams to not necessarily be back at full force that they were when we had great weather the whole time, but I think they're going to be back to a point that you're not going to see as many of those mistakes that you do tend to find when you go into those cold weather games. Now, before we get into that real quick, I want to run down scores from yesterday's playoff games for those of you interested in volleyball. You can check that out on our scoreboard page as well. But Girard took down Niles in 3 sets. Canfield beat Perry in 4 sets. Crestview swept Waterloo in 3. South Range beat LeBray in 3. Southern and Springfield go 5, but the Indians take it. Wellsville takes down Aquinas in 3. Aurora beat Howland in 3. My alma mater Copley beat Orange in 3. Lakeview beat Poland in 3. Western Reserve over Wyndham in 3. Sebring over Jackson Milton in 3. In boys playoff soccer, Wycliffe beat South Range 7-2. Crestwood beat Garfield 3-0. Mooney moves on as they beat Conneaut 10-1. JFK beats Liberty 7-3. Badger having another good night. They win 12-0 over Pymatuning Valley. Champion beats the Ridge 7-0. Crestview over Steubenville Central Catholic 4-1. In girls playoff soccer, Louisville season has come to a close as they are eliminated by NDCL. Howland moves on 4-0 over North Canton Hoover. Those are your games from last night. Tonight, though, pure football, a little bit more volleyball. We'll give you the rundown if we have time at the end of today's show. Without any further ado, let's get this show started with some high school football. First game up, I think it's one you have to watch. Maybe just have on in the back. I don't think it's going to be at the forefront of everyone's screens, but I think there's an opportunity for a struggling team to maybe pull an upset over a team that just had a really great win. I'm talking Champion and Brookfield. First game we're going at. Champion's 3-6. They've lost their last 4 games to Garfield, Liberty, Campbell, Crestview. And I know you're thinking, Champion, any chance against Brookfield? And here's the reason I say that. We saw this Champion team early in the year. Yeah, they got blown out by JFK, but then they came back next week. It was in a 3-point game against, a Rootstown team we've come to see is a pretty good team. They're 7-2. Then they beat Ravenna, they beat Newton Falls, they beat LeBray, and you go, all right, now they have some momentum. And then they got the momentum shot down by Garfield 54-14. And you see that game and you just go, yeah, all right, that's probably what you expected. Then they get caught off guard the next week against Liberty. Campbell jumps on him, Cressy falls on him, and now they're in this kind of downhill slide. And when you see this team in a downhill slide, you're just waiting. Can they bounce back out of this at some point? And I think if they're going to, that was a good opportunity. And obviously, I'm a Brookfield guy. I've called Brookfield a lot. They've won 8 straight games since the loss to Ursuline to open up the season, and they just pulled off maybe one of the most impressive wins of the last decade for Brookfield football, beating Garfield in Garfield by 3 touchdowns. But now, here's my thought. They're coming back in off the big game. They go in there, play tough, physical football. I think they come back home, and I think there's a letdown against Champion. I know Randy Clark will have these boys ready. I know he's ready. But at the same time, Matt and I calling this team last couple of years, we've seen these kind of games for them where they come back in off of one of those monumental performances, and they don't take the night off entirely. But there's definitely that moment of hesitation as they're getting into these games that they can struggle. And if Champion, I think we all know, is a good enough team that if they can stay with you, I mean, you can't count them out. They are a good enough team to make this interesting and give themselves an opportunity to pull a Week 10 upset. Now, what would that do for them for the postseason? I don't think it really does a whole bunch. They're 18th right now, 3-6 in Division 5, Region 17. And see, with a win, where would they fall? Give me 1 second here as my pages aren't loading. But at the moment, they can get a 12 seed if they win this game. They could be 12 through 16, or they could lose. Even with the win, they could potentially still not make the cut. It's a very tight race. There's a bunch of teams trying to still get in at this point. Only a handful have been eliminated. You go back. It's a game Champion needs to win at 3-6. So I think when you continue to look at that and you go, all right, well, this is must-win football on the side of Champion in Brookfield. They're pretty locked up where they are at the moment. They are guaranteed a top 8 spot. They have a very slim margin of getting that top 4. They have about that much of a shot. 3 teams have already clinched top 4 spots. And at the moment, it's a race between Dalton and Brookfield for the other 4. And I know Randy Clark told me early in the season he wants 2 home games in Brookfield. So part of me goes, they're going to have a letdown. But what they're really chasing is 2 home games. They're not necessarily worried about Champion in this game. They're worried about that playoff positioning in the postseason. With a loss, Brookfield falls to 8. They wind up 5 through 8. So anywhere in there is where they're going to sit. And all those spots, not all that different about who you're going to go up against. Probably 8 is not what you want, having the likelihood of going up against a team like United or Rootstown or the Ridge. It's probably not a spot you want to be, but they're going to be pretty solid into getting a top 6 spot. So this is a game for Brookfield that I continue to watch. Could be let down. No one's been close to them all season in games that they've won. No one's been close. I don't think Champion pulls the upset, but I think they can keep it close here against Brookfield. I think they have an opportunity to make those Warrior fans scared tonight and give them a little bit of a shocker for the final game for the seniors tonight at home in the regular season, at least. It should be an interesting game regardless. Next one up, Liberty on the road in Garfield. I know what you're thinking. No way this one's close at all. I would be hesitant to agree, but I think Garfield can pull away in this game. However, we talked about them losing last week. Team in Garfield that doesn't lose too much, especially not in a 21-point fashion. They lost 1 game last year. It was in the postseason to Kirtland, 25-7. So even that game was only 18 points. This is a Garfield team that hasn't lost by 21 points. I'm going back here. Let's see. The closest I can find their postseason losses by 18 points. This is a Garfield team that just doesn't lose in this manner. Even their worst season in recent years, in 2018, they were 6-4. Losses were by 12 points, 3 points, 23 points, and 16. So their largest marginal loss since 2018 for Garfield. This is uncharted waters for this team. None of these seniors have been in this game, in this kind of game where you have to come back after getting shut down in the game prior. And you look at Liberty, well, they're coming in with waves of momentum, whether it's against good teams or not, because it hasn't been. It's been against Campbell, Champion, Newton Falls, LeBray. whether or not it's good momentum or strong momentum or whatever it is, they're coming in with momentum. And Garfield is coming off the biggest loss in program history of the last 4 years. Of this senior class, it's their biggest loss they've ever taken. How do they rebound? How do these seniors keep everybody charged up? Because that's what I look at in a game like this. Seniors have the most experience. Well, everyone's looking at the coach because they have great coaching here. How is the senior class going to represent in their final home game of the regular season in a game they should go into as clear and heavy favorites? I think Liberty has an opportunity, much like Champion against Brookfield, to come in and keep this thing close. Now, I think Garfield is a much more physical team than Liberty. But those Leopards, they have speed. And when you have speed, you can limit some of the longer runs for Garfield. While you're not going to get those stops at the line of scrimmage, you're going to at least be able to take away the big hitters. And what you hopefully do when you can take away those big hitters at Garfield, you can just minimize their impact. And then I think Garfield's going to struggle to throw the ball against this Liberty team. So much like I said last week for Brookfield, the key to the game was to take away that passing element. I think the same thing goes for Liberty. They have enough speed with this defense that they can take away those passing lanes and potentially limit Garfield's offensive production for the second straight week. Because we saw last week playing in the same environment, same temperature, same weather against a strong defensive team in Brookfield, they could not move the ball consistently. And while Liberty is not half the defensive team that Brookfield is, I think there's an opportunity here with the new explosivity added by Tyson Lawrence Watson at quarterback. I think he opens up an opportunity with this wave of momentum to potentially pull this upset. I'm going G-Men here, but I think you got to keep an eye on this game as well. I think it's one you really have to watch out for. There's an opportunity for Liberty, and at the moment, they are a 16 seed coming in hungry. They do not have a postseason spot guaranteed. They do not control their own destiny. But all they have to do is win here tonight, and they at least have a shot. And if you're Liberty and you come to this point in the season and they tell you have a shot to get into the playoffs, no matter who's it against, they're going as hard as possible. If they win, they can hit as high as an 11 seed, but they still might not be in. If they lose, they could still end up with the 16 seed. But the chances are very, very slim for the Leopards. It's not really a spot that you want to just rely on. Hey, if we lose, enough goes on around us to keep us in that postseason hunt. They want to go in here, all out. Let's get this thing now and not have to worry about it. Let's give ourselves the best opportunity to get into this postseason conversation. That's what I'm looking for out of Liberty in this game. Garfield in Region 17, they're a 10 spot, so they still won't have a home game, at least at the moment. They've clinched a playoff spot. A win here, they could jump into that top 8. They can either get 7 they can go as high as 5, as low as 14, depending on the result of this game. So it's still very important for Garfield, but I think it's a game a little bit more important for Liberty to try and get into this postseason with such a young roster, with another freshman quarterback. The storyline really going great right now for this team. Our next game, probably one not a lot of people are going to be tuning into, and for obvious reasons, the teams aren't having that great of a year. But Newton Falls going into Crestview. Both teams with about the same record. Newton Falls is 3-6, Crestview is 3-5. But I like Crestview coming into this game, but I've also seen a lot of Newton Falls. They haven't really had blowouts against them. Brookfield and Garfield really were the only teams that really did some damage against them. Mineral Ridge pulled away from Newton Falls. They win 33-14. We look at their other losses. They lost by 2 to Jacksonville. They lost by 5 to Champion. They lose by 2 touchdowns to Liberty. Their wins, all 3 wins for Newton Falls have come in shutout victories against St. John, LeBray, and Campbell. So while their wins are not all that great, they haven't really lost bad. And you can kind of say the same thing for for Crestview. Outside of Brookfield and Garfield, their losses have been close. 10 points to Salem, 5 points to Southern, 3 points to United. And their wins come 63-0, 22-7, and 35-14. They're both very comparable. Points for Crestview, 201 to 207 points against. For Newton Falls, 174, 172 against. Both of these teams have played about even, whether it's home or the road. They've both played about even. Now, I think Crestview's offense is a little better, but obviously their defense is a little worse. They put up, 30 more points in one less game, but they've also allowed 35 more points against in one less game. So clearly there is a defensive advantage, a smidge for Newton Falls. But I do like the offense for Crestview coming into it. And I know they've stat padded probably a little bit in these games. Miller at quarterback, decently accurate, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for him on the year. And he has 793 passing yards. They have almost 1,300 yards on the ground, led by Batura. He's got 8 rushing touchdowns. I think this is going to be a good night for Crestview. I think it's one that they can win. I don't know if they will. I think both teams can really come in here and give themselves opportunities to win. Crestview right now in Region 21, Division 6 is a 16 seed. So it's must-win football time for them. Crestview does not control their own destiny, but with the win, they could potentially find a spot if Trinity, Jackson Milton Southeast, and PV lose. One of the couple, not all of them have to, but 1 or 2, I believe, have to lose, and Crestview win for them to get this opportunity. Now, Newton Falls, they need pretty much every team in front of them to lose. They're back a while and up near 1920. But the door's still there. 21 is what they actually are. But they still have an opportunity, but they need a lot to go right. But it all starts with winning this game. I'm taking the Rebels, but I think this is going to be a close, very important game for both teams. That's why I don't think you can just look at this game and blow it off and go, it doesn't matter. It's 2 not so great teams. I think both teams are good enough to win this game and make the postseason. That's what they're going for. This game, well, it may not matter for state titles or top seeds or home games. It matters to both these teams because they want to hit the postseason and they want to hit the postseason running. You want that opportunity. You want to be able to push. Here's your opportunity. Next game up, Ravenna JFK. I don't think this one's going to be nearly as close. JFK, the top seed for Division 7. They've looked really good this year. They come off a win against Cleveland Central Catholic, who was 0-8 going into it, but they dominated 44-8. Last 3 weeks, JFK has given up just 8 points offensively. They scored 77, and they didn't even play one of those 3 games. The Aquinas game was forfeited by Aquinas. This is a JFK team that really you can't find many holes with. They have played a hard schedule. They have won the games that they were supposed to. They won a couple of the games that, were those big, hard battles. I mean, Garfield, Perkins, Mogador, Rootstown. They went in, they won those games outside of Mogador. They've played a really good season. And you look at Ravenna, they had a really good start to the year. I mean, they were 4-2, losses to champion in Mogador Field. But last 2 games were Mogador, Rootstown, tough teams. They couldn't keep up. They played decent, especially in the Rootstown game on the road. But now you go into JFK, a team that is just playing really great. They're actually going to be playing up in Liberty tonight. I have JFK, and I would probably say that JFK can get this thing to a running clock and really push Ravenna Southeast out of the postseason. Potentially, Southeast could actually make the postseason still and potentially give themselves a run for Region 21. If they can win this game, especially, they become up all the way to a 10 seed potentially if they can win it. So it's a big game for them to go out there and do something. So next game up, Wellsville and Leetonia. I'll make this one quick. It's going to be the Tigers. After the game they had a week ago against Valley Christian, I think a game like this is huge for them. Come in here, finish off the season at 4-6, and see what happens from there. If you don't make the postseason, it's one thing. They're an 18th seed at the moment, but obviously this win is not going to do a whole lot for them. It's not going to get you any points because they're an 0-9 school. Let me just check where they are real quick. So with a win, they can get all the way to 13. They still might not make it. If they lose, they could be a 15 seed or 16, or they could miss the playoffs entirely. So it's a very thin edge. A Wellsville win goes a long way for them. Well, I don't think they're going to do anything in this postseason because likelihood is, a 15, 16 seed around there have to go up against JFK, Lowellville, Danville, St. Paul, Southern, Hillsdale, one of those teams that has been playing really good football in the month of October. I don't think Wellsville is one of those, but I think that they can get this done here against Latonia. Next one up, Western Reserve, 3-6, going on the road into the undefeated den of the Rockets, 9-0. Man, we've talked about this team all season long and my fascination with their ability as a team to really get this done. And you just continue to look at their star in Vinny Ballone and Bunovsky and Lucido and Lucente and even Dabney. And it's really just been every week full team performances. And, while there has been a fall off in numbers for Ballone, I don't think it's one that you look at and you're disappointed with what he's finished because it's still been a phenomenal season. At the moment, he has 44 passing touchdowns on the year. That total for Vinny Ballone puts him currently tied for 22nd all time. If he gets 2 touchdowns tonight, he enters into the top 20 for a season in passing touchdowns. So it's been a really great year. And while he might not, crack Big Ben's numbers of 54 or hit Joe Burrow's of 46 or 47, he's still going to be up there right next to their names on this podium of, some of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in the state of Ohio. And Vinny Ballone certainly has made his mark on this school. And, I don't have, let me pull up his career numbers real quick. But it's been a really phenomenal run for this team. And, it's not over yet. So at the moment, he says he has 113 passing touchdowns. That ties him with Nate Mays out of Urbana back from 2011, 2014. He's top 10 all time passing touchdowns. He gets, 3 more here tonight. He'll hit 8th. He'll pass Colby Speece out of Haviland Wayne Trace back in 2013. If he has another monumental night, which we know is possible for him, he could pass Grant Sherman of Kenton from back in 2013 as well. This is a top 10 that hasn't been cracked since 2014 when it was hit by Joe Burrow, Parker Carmichael, and Nate Mays. It's a list that hasn't been touched. And Vinny Ballone, he's been climbing this list all season long, and you really look at it. The last person to even crack the top 45. It was 2015, Jacob Harrison. This is a record list, not just, a handful of. This is a full list of 50-plus players from the state of Ohio that hasn't been touched in 7 years. And Vinny Ballone is on this list, whether the season ends or not. Whether he plays in this game tonight or not, he is top 10 all time in career passing touchdowns for the entire state. It's been a memorable year. This is going to cap it off with one of their first undefeated season in years. They captured, I think they said it was their first title in over a decade as well. This is a great finish for Louisville. And I got the Rockets going big one final time. I want to see Ballone and his boys not run up the score. Keep it nice looking. Sportsmanship, obviously. But give this one a running clock. They can do it. I don't dislike Wellsville whatsoever. But, Western Reserve, pardon me, but I think it's a game that I don't think they stand much of a chance in to get this done against the Rockets, who have just been amazing no matter where they are. And another team that doesn't have a shot tonight is the Orange Lions, as they are 0-9 and traveling into a team that has not lost in the regular season in 5 years. Kirtland. Yeah, I don't think I need to say much more. Kirtland's coming off a win over Edgewood, who's a pretty decent team out there in Ashtabula, 44-0. It's going to be ugly. I don't think it's going to be a game anyone's going to be tuning into. Orange chance here, I would actually have to go out and say they have a 0% chance of winning this game. Kirtland is that good, and they don't lose in the regular season. They just don't. It's one of the most prestigious programs in the state of Ohio. especially in recent years. Their success has been near unmatched across the state. It's been one heck of a run for these guys. Next one up, be my game. I'm on it tonight. Youngstown East, technically playing in their home stadium, but they'll be the road team as they go up against Cheney. The battle of the Youngstown local city schools, as both these teams obviously play at Rayen. Cheney will be the home team. East comes in 0-9. Cheney comes in 8-1. And I won't give you two guesses on which way this game is likely to end up going. Cheney's played really great all year. They're looked at as one of the top teams in the state, Division III. They're looking to clinch a top 4 spot with a win. With a loss here, I mean, they could get knocked out of top 4. They've clinched a home game at the very minimum. So Rayen Field's going to see its first postseason game in quite some time. It's been a while for the stadium. And, of course, first year on turf there. And Cheney's going to get them into the postseason and give them some light over there in Rayen Field, one of the most historic and oldest fields in the state of Ohio. I think Cheney is going to have a good game. And we've seen East the last 2 weeks. Canfield, Ursuline, 2 teams on Cheney's level, come in here, win 48-0, 56-8. I don't think that there's a huge opportunity for East in this game unless they go out there and play the game of their lives. Limit turnovers, because that killed them against Ursuline. They had 3 turnovers in that game. And, statistically in that game, I believe, at least from the stats I saw, East had a better game. They held Ursuline to just 40 passing yards and 105 rushing. They even had 2 fumbles off Will Burney. It was a good game for East outside of the scorebook. If you take away the score in that game against Ursuline, you would have thought East won that game because they were really good across the board statistically. But once they got down far enough and those drives, they died out against this phenomenal Ursuline defense. And I think I'm going to see the same again. They're going to have a couple of nice drives against Cheney, and they're going to go in and they're going to give them a fight. A couple of times they're going to make it interesting, I think, for at least a quarter. But I think ultimately Cheney with 2 FBS players on their team that are already committed, and they have others that will probably be going FCS or D2 or D3. I don't think there's any shout in saying that this team is loaded of college athletes, potential future college athletes, I should say. I think Cheney is going to have their way, especially coming off of that low-scoring kind of defensive battle against Harding. They want to get that taste out of their mouth going into this postseason. And while it ultimately doesn't really matter what the outcome of this game is outside of pride, because I believe it's Cheney's chances of getting a 2-5 spot is the same whether they win or lose this game. It feels to me, though, that Cheney, they just need to get this bad taste out of their mouth in that Harding game. Warren G came in to Rayen Field and held it close. It's a game that I feel this Cowboy squad doesn't feel like should have been that close. And so I think this is a game tonight. I'm going to go out there, kind of make that final statement win here at the end of the season and give them something to look forward to going into this postseason. Just go out there, do what they want, and do what they know they can do, and take this game, I'll say, fairly easily. Next game up, I'm a little torn by because I would like to see our YSN team win here in Louisville, but they're 3-6 and they're going up against Lindsley, who is 6-1, who's been close in their last 3 games, nearly upsides to Fort Fry, Steubenville, and Dover. However, one thing all 3 of those teams have in common, they have good, high-quality winning records. And Lindsley's has win over 7-2. St. Clairsville, 4-5 Cardinal Mooney, a win against Amani Christian Academy out of PA, who's 4-4. Their only loss came to Fairmont Senior, who's 5-3. But it's a pretty good team. They're going on the road here, which, might give Louisville a little bit of an edge playing at home. It's a little bit of a long drive. You don't have to cross the border. It's a game Louisville, I think, can win. However, it's one I don't really think they will because, if you've listened to Power Hour, you've heard DJ rant about this Lindsley team and how they're playing 22-year-old kids on this team. It's a military school. They're not following the standards of West Virginia high school athletics. They kind of operate, I'll say, outside the law. But it's not really a competition, I think, coming into it. It's a game I would like to see Louisville pull out, just, give some pride and, kind of stick it to that Lindsley crew. But I don't think it's a game they're going to get done. Another game that I'm not sure they're going to get it done is Niles. I think they have an opportunity, but considering they're on a 6-game losing skid, I don't think they're going to go in on the road into Girard and pull an upset in the final game of the season for the Indians in this stadium, at least in the regular season. They'll get at least one postseason game. But that being said, Girard is on a losing skid of their own and lost 3 of their last 4. They did beat Hubbard, and obviously they're a good team. They got held down by Poland and Struthers in close games, and obviously South Range is amazing, and they ran away with that. But I saw a strong Girard team last week playing without their starting quarterback this season in Bengala. And, it's been Stephen Sims, and Dominic Talone operating this offense. And from what I saw last week, it's a talented 2 guys. Now, the one thing I don't know is whether or not Stephen Sims is healthy this game. He played the first half football, had both of Girard's touchdowns in that first half. Didn't play a snap in the second. He was on the sideline, still in his pads, but he didn't have his helmet the whole time. So I don't know what the status is there for him. So, it could be a game purely dominated by the third-string quarterback in Dominic Talone. So we'll see how that plays out. Ultimately, though, Girard is going to play their style of football. They're going to play strong defense, and they're going to run the football. That's their bread and butter. If Mike was here on the show, it's what he'd be saying. They have almost 2,000 rushing yards on the season. They do like to have a bit of balance, but with Bengala out, they've gone away from throwing it as much. And I think part of that is why they've struggled and they've had a couple of losses. It's because he got injured in that South Range game, and they haven't been the same since. And that worries me, especially for the postseason for this Girard team. But from what I saw out of Talone last week, if we're now with another week of practice under his belt, getting only starting reps, if he's the guy they send out there and there's no Sims available, I think they're going to be just fine. And it should give, if both guys are playing, both these quarterbacks, an opportunity to get some reps and get them ready for the postseason, because whether they like it or not, they're going to have to find a way to win against good teams with Stephen Sims and Dominic Talone. I'm taking the Indians here. Niles, it hasn't been a great season for him. I don't like him to win it. But you want to talk about the game to watch? Well, we're heading back to the Wigwam. United, Southern, both teams at 8-1 with an opportunity for second place in the conference on the line. While neither team can ultimately win the conference here tonight, they at least can finish second, take the bragging rights, second to Valley Christian, who we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. But this is a big game for both these teams, and I think you have to look at it, and you look at it as one of the biggest games of the week, because we're in week 10. Not a lot of teams have scheduled phenomenal week 10 games. This is one of the groups that has. And I think you look at it. I've seen both these teams, both very talented, both very physical, and they're going to war. Southern, obviously, they want that game back against Valley. You play that 10 times and it's split. It really was that close. Valley got some late momentum, and they took it. United, they got shut down by Valley. Valley had one of their best games of the season in that night. Since then, they've played dominant. They have not allowed more than one score in a single game since Valley Christian. Valley hung up 36 in the last 5 weeks. They haven't even allowed that many points. It's been a good run. They've allowed 27 in the last 5 weeks compared to 36 against Valley, 39 to Crestview, 21 to East Canton, obviously 7 to Waterloo was a good start. It's a defense, though, that has improved since Valley. They were exposed in that game. It's a different team than the one I saw playing now. They're better offensively. They're better defensively. And you go into this matchup against Southern, a team that, they broke stride against Valley Christian, but all season long has been about consistent as can be. They're going on the plus side of 45 almost every night, and you're not likely to score more than once against them. It's happened in 3 games. The loss to Valley, a 51-14 win over Columbiana, and a 51-22 win over Lisbon. It's been a very impressive season for Southern. We know they can win close games. They didn't win one of them against Valley, but they won the one against Crestview in week 2. I'm interested to see how this one goes. I think this is about as coin flip as can be because I like what I've seen out of both teams. Outside of Valley and Brookfield, I'll just keep it conference. Outside of Valley Christian in this conference, no two other teams are going to give you as physical of a night as these two will. Between, Perfetto and X-Line, I mean, they have guys that are just going to go down and just jam it between the tackles all night long. They're not afraid of contact. And United can play a little bit more spread out. And I'm interested to see how that fares against Southern. Because Valley kind of had to change their style of play to get something late in that game against Southern. They had to keep it on the ground. They got a little bit tighter to the line of scrimmage. And eventually they got Southern so tight, bringing everybody in, that once they spread back out, it left Vashawn Gurley open deep. That's got to be United's game plan, is to squeeze Southern's defense to the line of scrimmage and open up one of those downfield shots. Because if you're lining up in the spread, Southern's defense is too fast or too strong. You're not going to be able to get those passes off with a lot of time to spare or any. And if you're got guys in one-on-one coverage, Southern has defensive backs that can go and make those types of plays as well. So if you're United, you just have to keep this game within 10 yards. Keep everything within 10 yards for a good half of football offensively. And then you will pinch them enough that you can go over the top. If you're Southern, you just have to really, same game plan. Keep this thing within 10 yards. They don't want to throw the football. They don't need to throw the football. It helps them, sure, it makes them more dynamic. But Southern can win a football game purely running it. And I don't think there's too many other teams around that can go, we can run the football 100 times and we know we will get positive yardage just about every time we hand that ball off. They are that physical at the line of scrimmage. They dominated Valley at the line of scrimmage in that game. For 3 quarters, they were playing in the secondary of Valley Christian's defense. They got up to the linebackers and they got past them sometimes. And, defensively, they were on Valley Christian's running game. For 90% of the snaps, they were playing standing next to Jordan Pete in the backfield. When I saw Southern the other week, they really looked to me like the best team in the EOAC. Valley Christian got lucky there in the end. And sometimes, it's better to be lucky than good. I think Valley is still very great. I think that, obviously they played 5 to 10 times. It's split down the middle. But that night, Southern played like the better team for the majority of that game. Valley got loose, and you can't let them loose. Same goes for United here. I think Southern will probably play as the better team, but it's all about whether or not United can get somebody loose and get them open down the field and spread out Southern's defense late in the game, because that's where Valley found success late. They were able to spread out Southern thin enough for 1 play, 2 plays, to get enough space to operate. It's not about winning 3 quarters in this game. You only need to win 1 against Southern if you can play in a physical game like Valley's was. If this is a shootout style game like we've seen the last majority of the season for both of these teams, I think they'll both be fine. If this is just, hey, spread it out, no defense, all offense, this thing can end 55-56, and I don't think anyone would think anything of it other than the fact that, 2 great offenses. What happened to the defense? Who cares? It's a great game to watch. But I think both these teams have spectacular defenses. So I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring. Ultimately, though, like I said, I think Southern is a phenomenal team. And playing down here in D7, I haven't really loved what I've seen out of a majority of the teams in D7 this year. I think teams with an opportunity to, get something done, few and far between. And Sonia over in Region 28, really kind of the only one I look at over there, maybe Fort Loramie. You have Hannibal River. I see something maybe there in Region 27. In Region 26, I really don't. There's some, high record teams over there, but not any I think you look at and go, they can go toe-to-toe with whoever comes out of Region 25, which is JFK, it's Lowellville, it's Danville, it's St. Paul, Hillsdale, Southern, Springfield, Matthews. It's a really, really good top of Region 25. Southern's in that conversation. And I know when I talked to them the other week, the main focus was forcing St. Paul to come to the Wigwam. With a win here over United, they can do that. St. Paul, if they win this week, if they win or lose, they will end up a 4-8 seed. Does not matter for them. For Southern, if they win, they are guaranteed 2 home games. If they lose, they might get that 4 spot as well, or they could drop to 9 and not get any home games. And when I talked to him the other week before that Valley Christian game, the message really was they want to force St. Paul, who's eliminated the last 2 years, to come into the Wigwam and be forced to play there because they've had to go on the road the last 2 and they've lost. They want revenge. And when you have a team like Southern kind of with this unified message this season, especially here late, I think it gives you enough of an edge, especially in a game like this, over another good team who's also hunting for a top 10 spot. They're number 9 at the moment. And you know they want to get something here. They're 9. They clinched a playoff spot. With a win, they end up as a team likely with the home game. If they lose, those chances severely diminished. I like Southern to take this game, mainly because I've seen them more recently, and they played phenomenally against the team I consider to be really one of the best in Valley. Southern, I think, played a better game that night for 3 quarters. I think Southern, again, will have a really phenomenal night of football, playing their style. And I know you just look at them this season and you go, oh, their style is 45 points a game. It's not, though. It's an outcome of their physicality is that they've been able to run up the score. But they are a team that is designed for close, low-scoring, physical-type games. And I think that's what this is going to be. And when you have a team designed for that type of physicality to play in late October, they're going to get it done. This next game should be a pretty good one. Beaver local at 7-2. The Beavs, they've had a really great run of things. They've won their last 7 games. They haven't lost since August against Salem in a 2-score game. Now they take on Wheeling Central Catholic Maroon Knights out of West Virginia, who come in undefeated into this game. But man, this Beaver team has been playing outstanding football. And you know, when you look over to Beaver local and what they've done this season, they're in the perfect opportunity, the perfect spot to make something of this year. And I think you have to look at it, and you really have to give a lot of props to this team for continuing to fight. I mean, you lose your first 2 games of the season, everyone loses faith in you. No one is kind of holding on and going, yeah, that's a team to watch out for. That's when the doubters really start to get to you. What they've done, they've won 7 straight games. And with a win tonight, they guarantee themselves either 1, 2, or 3, depending on whether or not West Branch goes down to Salem on Saturday. They give themselves an opportunity to go from 0-2 at the beginning of the year to maybe the number 1 team in Division 4 Region 13. It has been one heck of a run for these Beavs, and I don't think it ends here today. Their defense in the last 4 weeks has been great. 26 points allowed in 4 games, while they've put up, I believe, over 200. Yeah, over 200, well over 200. They've scored a majority of their points this season in the last 4 games alone. 62 against Glenn, 65 against Harrison Central, 56 against Indian Creek, 56 against the Pretenders and John Hay. Beavers clicking. And they're going to go up against a Maroon Knight team that thinks they're untouchable. Beavers are going to bring them down to earth, much like they did at John Hay a week ago. They're going to show who's the pretender in this game. And I like the Beavs to get it done. I gotta ring the upset watch for this final game. Jackson Milton on the road to McDonald, because Jackson Milton is 6-3. But I think everybody has seen it's not a phenomenal 6-3. The wins: Leetonia, Newton Falls, LeBray, Western Reserve, Sebring, Waterloo. They won the games they were supposed to. McDonald comes in 3-6. They just beat Waterloo a week ago, 28-6, after losing 3 straight. And while their wins have only come against Columbiana, Sebring, and Waterloo, and maybe not all that great, I think this is a game, it's a trap for Jackson Milton to walk in here, on the road especially, to McDonald, a team that, much like them, is trying to get something here at the end of the year and see what happens. Jackson Milton's kind of been put into this spot that they're not looking all that great. Despite having a winning record and finishing this season with a winning record, win or loss, they might still miss the postseason. Right now, at the moment, they sit 13. Loss, they drop. Win, they could drop. It's because they've had such an abysmal strength of schedule this season, and they haven't won the games that they needed to. You needed to find a way against Springfield, Ridge, or the Ville. One of those three you had to find a way against, and they couldn't get it done. They have not won a game. They have not lost a game they weren't supposed to. Their record right now, if you were to predict Jackson Milton all the way through this season, you would likely finish at 6-4 or 7-3. One of those two is where you'd finish. I'd probably say 7-3. When you look at this schedule on and go, yeah, they should finish 7-3. But it doesn't guarantee them a postseason spot. And I mean, you go around and you just see, what a 6-3 team is everywhere else. You're top 10 teams, top 8 teams. Jackson Milton's not that. I think this is a big trap game going into that they might not come out on top of. I think this really is a game to watch, and one that I think people should be keeping an eye out for what would be an upset. McDonald, coming in as a 20 seed, and they're not out of this postseason either. With a win, they could jump all the way to 11. They could swap places with Jackson Milton basically in standings. Well, they're in two different regions, two different divisions. But they could flip numbers after this game, depending on how this goes. I think it's one the Blue Devils can get done, but in the Battle of the Blues, I'm taking the Jays. I like them a little better, and like I said, they've won the games they were supposed to win. This is a game you look at. They are supposed to win this game. I think they can. We'll see if they end up getting it done. Officially, just one game left on the schedule for us to talk about this week. We are going to preview a game that has not yet been confirmed. It's only pure speculation at the moment. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we got to talk game of the week. It's going on Saturday, too. So all eyes will be on this game. Salem going on the road to take on Drew DeShields and the West Branch Warriors, who, much like those boys in the Villa, have had one heck of a season. Drew DeShields, if he goes out here and gets 10 touchdowns in this game, he'll join Vinny Ballone in that career or in the single season passing touchdowns. He needs a lot to catch in that category. But I mean, overall, he has been spectacular this season. And he has been no small part of why they've won 8 straight games since a 4-point loss to Canfield to open the season. This team since August has not had more than one team within single digits of them. Canfield game and Alliance 2 weeks ago. Alliance kept it close 42-35. Salem, they lost to Carrollton. They lost to Alliance, who are West Branch's last 2 wins. Salem's coming off a win against Marlington. They won that 41-7. West Branch, that was one of their last 3 games. 53-16, they won that game. I think people want to say this game is going to be close. For good reason. I mean, both these teams are spectacular. They're both really good teams. But in my opinion, West Branch really has overtaken this region, Region 13, as the team to beat. And you look at Salem, they're not that far down. I mean, they're only sitting, I think about 8-9 is where they're at. Just double check this here real quick. Salem's at 8. They're in his chance right now. They have a playoff spot locked up. But with a win, they could potentially finish second. With a loss, they can drop to 16th. Pretty much every spot is available. 2 through 16. There's only 2 teams right now with the chance for first. Beaver Local and West Branch. And I really think West Branch is the team to beat. I mean, the fact that they went up against a team in Canfield, a division above them, mind you, that is probably one of the favorites to take home state title in that division, or at least the regional championship over there. It's a game I think you look at for West Branch as a game you should win. And I don't think it's a game they should win by a small margin either. This is a game I think that they can go in there, win by 4 touchdowns. And this is not a knock against Salem. I think that this is the confidence I have in West Branch's offense. They have not scored below 30 points on the season. In fact, they've only scored below 40 twice. A win over Ridgewood, 38-14, and a loss to Canfield. Or the only times they've scored below 30 points. 40, pardon me. This offense is spectacular. And they've been challenged by good offenses against them. And the most they allowed was in the first game of the season to Canfield, 35, and to 35 2 weeks ago against Alliance. I think Salem is a good team. I think they're a real good team. They scored 100 less points, though, than West Branch on the year. They allowed 30 more points. Every statistical category points towards West Branch. And really, not even by a small margin. This is West Branch's game to lose, and I don't think they will because we haven't seen them go down. They have been really the best team around in this region. The most consistent week to week. And at the moment, only one person has taken Salem in this game in the YSN Pick'ems that I'm looking at right now. I won't reveal who it is, but I can tell you only one person has taken him. Granted, it's the same guy that took Orange over Kirtland. We'll see how that plays out. But I don't think this is a game Salem is going to be able to get this done in. I would like to see him keep it close. I mean, this would be a huge upset and a huge win for Salem to go into the postseason with. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this would be monumental for their season. To go from 6-4, yeah, you're okay. You might end up with a 16 seed, to beating West Branch, being the top team in your region, perhaps grabbing number 2 in the rankings. I mean, that would be huge for this team. Huge for them. A lot has to happen for them to get up that high. Likelihood is the highest they could finish is 3. But it's been a good year for Salem. But I think they're not going to get this done Saturday night against a great West Branch team. I'm taking the Warriors. And like I said, this should be about 3 touchdowns West Branch can take this by. Final game, although unofficial, Valley Christian versus East Palestine has been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances on the side of the Bulldogs. That's all that was put out about that game. Potential opponent that has been thrown around the rumor mill here is Kenmore Garfield, whose game on Saturday against Akron North has been canceled as well, as Akron North has dismantled their football team. And that's why that they are available for this Week 10 matchup. Kenmore Garfield would come in at 2-7 if this game happens. Has not been confirmed. Only pure speculation at this point. Valley Christian could ultimately not find a game this Saturday and would end perfect at 9-0 for the first time in school history. They would finish with an undefeated season. There's already, been interviews with the team about this, about their undefeated season, and the monumentalness of it. They started playing in 2004, and here they are. What would this be? Their 19th season, finally undefeated and winning one of their first conference titles since that introduction to Valley Christian football in 2004. I believe I was told their last one was around 2007, so it may have only been their second one. They won the conference crown. And perfect season is kind of on the line if whether or not they pick up this final game or not. I don't think anyone would deny Valley Christian should go up against a team in Kenmore Garfield who's 2-7. It has not been their best year. I mean, Kenmore football has traditionally, from what I've always heard, they've been good. They've had their struggles in the recent decade. But traditionally, a good team, very physical, kind of a similar style and similar group of kids to what you would see in Valley Christian. I mean, tough, city kids that, nothing comes easy for them. And Kenmore really feels like a couple of years back of what Valley Christian was going through, of just, bad years after having a, pretty good start. If this game was to happen, I would take Valley. Potentially, I'll be on the call for it. I'm scheduled for Valley. If they play a home game Saturday, I'm on Valley's call. We'll see. I'd like to see him pick somebody up and finish that perfect 10-0, because otherwise you're always going to have this asterisk of it was only 9 games. I don't think they really care. They want this postseason to get started. They want to see Kirtland. They want to win this whole thing. These players, I mean, in the interviews I was just listening to before this show, the goal is a championship. They're not sugarcoating this anymore. They don't think, hey, it's just Kirtland. We can beat everyone but Kirtland. Now they have a true belief in themselves that they can go out there and they can win the whole freaking thing. And this is a mindset for Valley Christian that I don't think you've ever seen in this group before. They come into this final week as a 4 seed. They might finish 3 or 4. We don't really know at the moment with the cancelization of the game where they'll finish. Kirtland's locked up number 1. Mogadore and Valley have guaranteed themselves 2 home games. Dalton and Brookfield and Rootstown are the only other ones competing for that 4th spot. It's going to be something. It's going to be very fun to see what Valley does in the postseason. I look forward to covering them there. I saw them last year, and I think this team is twice the team in every aspect of what they were last season. And they were great last season. But that wraps up our high school football Day 2 extravaganza. Whether or not that game happens, congratulations to Valley Christian on an epic season. Best of luck in the postseason. I hope I'm there for the ride, because I've enjoyed it for last season, now this season as well. I'm looking forward to it. Not any further ado, let's wrap this thing up. Let's go into highlight of the week. I have to go start of the NBA season. The Cavs, well, they lost their first game. It was a fun one to watch with Donovan Mitchell hitting 31 points in his debut with Cleveland. I mean, you look at just the starting 5 they have, and with Jetty coming off the bench and Kevin Love, it's going to be a really fun unit to watch, and I'm very excited for this postseason to go. Without any further ado, though, this week's Meathead of the Week, as recently sent in here by Matt Morrison, Tom Brady is this week's Meathead of the Week, not for his comments in one of the podcasts he was on, which could potentially also land him here, but Tom Brady has denied any accusations of retirement now after this season. And the dude, his world fell apart around him this offseason, and he could, potentially still be in his kids' lives if he retired at the end of this year, but he doesn't want to be. And he's denying any chance of retirement. And it's just, dude, you're old. Keep it on the line. Maybe don't say, yeah, I'm going to retire, but don't roll it out. Everyone knows it's coming. We ain't fools. It's going to happen eventually. Matt, though, says Tom Brady's Meathead of the Week. That does it for us here. I'm Alec Caberna. Hopefully we can get Matt on the show next week to come back on, give some of his thoughts from these big games from the past weekend. But I've been Alec Caberna on your sports network. Power Hour coming up next on YSNLive.com.